Hey everyone, welcome to Question Period Rewind. I'm Donna Skelly, the Speaker of the Legislative Assembly of Ontario. Let's go back to 1986. That's the year when the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inducted its first batch of musicians. Among them, the iconic Ray Charles, Buddy Holly, and of course, Elvis Presley. Tina Turner was also receiving praise in California, where her star on Hollywood's Walk of Fame was revealed. And if you turned on the radio, there's a good chance you'd hear Madonna's #1 hit, Papa Don't Preach. But now, let's tune into the conversations the MPPs were having in Question Period.
Oral questions. The Leader of the Opposition.
My question, Mr. Speaker, is for the Premier. The Premier must now finally be getting concerned about what is clear evidence of total chaos in the healthcare system. The situation we have today is as follows. Many emergency wards effectively closed. Dentists in hospitals having withdrawn services. Therapeutic abortions no longer available in 7 or 8 hospitals. Pharmacists very unhappy with the government's activities. The American Society of Travel Agents is reportedly considering advising Americans not to come to Ontario. And Ontario travelers no longer will have the opportunity to have their OHIP cards accepted in Quebec, Alberta, and British Columbia. And today, 2 more hospitals in Toronto have indicated that they are likely to stop admitting new patients. You met last evening with Dr. Railton and others to try and end this total chaos in the system, to attempt, as you have said it, to begin to pick up the pieces. Dr. Railton said, quote, "The sanctions are escalating and it's going to happen all across the province." What now are you going to do?
Premier.
Mr. Speaker, we are, as you know, on top of the situation. The Minister has been discussing this matter with a number of others. We had a meeting with Dr. Railton and Dr. Moran and Mr. Trevino yesterday. I'm sorry I can't report to you that it was productive in a direct sense, but we are in the process of attempting to address some of the concerns raised by the doctors in this discussion. With respect to their professional freedoms, and in that regard, my colleague has written Mr. Dr. Railton today to express his views on this situation.
Supplementary.
The fact is, as a result of a meeting you had last night, the sanctions are escalating, as Dr. Railton indicated they would, and your olive branch at a too late stage is looked upon with so much proper skepticism that you have continuing and catapulting chaos across the system. I want to ask the Premier to consider an option. We would suggest a 5-point program to try and succeed in getting the doctors back to work. First, recognize the need for a cooling-off period. 2, appointment of an independent mediator. 3, allow the doctors time to proceed with their court action. 4th, during this cooling-off period, delay implementation of Bill 94 for 60 to 90 days. And 5, that the doctors would thus immediately end their sanctions upon acceptance of this program and appointment of an independent mediator. Might I ask you today to consider this as clearly a responsible option to get the doctors back to work and to stop the chaos we're seeing in the system?
Well, Mr. Speaker, we have discussed all of these items on numerous occasions in this House. I guess my colleague announced yesterday we're prepared to expedite the court reference or a challenge, whichever method the OMA prefers. My colleague, the Attorney General, is prepared to expedite that very quickly. There are a number of other points you raised that we have discussed before. Mediate what? Mediate the principle of the bill? Back off on the principle of the bill? If that's what you're asking me, and you have to be very clear on that, then the answer is the bill is now the law of the land, and I'm sure my honourable colleague opposite understands that. If you're asking me to bring in a third party to discuss the questions of liberty and freedoms, we're very happy to do that. Indeed, that offer has been made by my colleague, the Minister of Health, to Dr. Railton today. And if you'd like me to, I'd be very happy to read you a copy of that letter. You see, there are a number of things, if in a judgment of the OMA, that a third party could assist us in coming to some consensus on. We're looking for that consensus. And we've said before, and I say to you, that we're looking at issues of compensation, issues of freedom, and other things that have been raised. And I remind you that the OMA has always said that this fight was about liberties and freedoms. And so I'm saying to them, we're very happy to discuss them in any forum they'd like to discuss them.
Final supplementary.
I remind the Premier that he has got no credibility when he approaches the doctors and suggests he's prepared to guarantee anything to them. The doctors, you see, had a guarantee of their freedom to opt out an extra bill enshrined in legislation before you came to office. As a result of your determination to take away that freedom, the legal guarantee was worth nothing, as are your further guarantees. My question to the Premier is this. Given the fact that we now have all sorts of strife in the system, given the fact that you refuse to appoint a mediator when a mediator would have been able to avoid this strife, could you explain to this House why it is, now that you've decided to bring in a mediator, why you wouldn't invite the OMA to expand the terms of reference for that mediator for 60 or 90 days only, to talk about Bill 94 as well, and see if there is an opportunity to get the doctors back to work tomorrow. What have you got to lose by doing that?
Premier.
Mr. Speaker, my honorable friend opposite refers to credibility. And I say to him very frankly, the OMA does not like what we have done, but when we say something, they take it at face value. Now, that is not the case with respect to you. You should hear the things that they say about you in dealing with you, my honorable friend. Let me tell you. Now, with respect to your...
Order.
Well, we don't have a... The Speaker would rule me out of order. I've got a limited time to answer this question, so I will not get into those particular questions, Mr. Speaker. I think it would be misleading if we said that, well, we could hang on to this thing for, a month or 2 months or 3 months or whatever, because then the discussion we're having now today would come around proclamation or the end of the suspension period. See, I don't think it's fair to mislead people about the intentions of the government. We said we wanted to stop extra billing, and we have done so. But we've also said, and I say to you, that there are many other issues that have been raised in the discussion. And we approach those, with an open mind. We are prepared to discuss these things. As I said on Friday last, Dr. John Evans is ready to look into these matters of freedom. We can have the OMA participate in creating the terms of reference for Dr. Evans if they want to address the freedom issues, capping of income, and other things, and we're happy to have his advice or anyone else's advice. If they're not happy with Dr. Evans or someone else who could assist in working out these freedom questions, we're happy to do it. But I say to you, my honorable colleague again, Order. If you're asking the government to back off, to withdraw Bill 94, to not end extra billing, the answer is no.
Order. New question.
You're prepared to discuss everything with the doctors except the reasons that they're on strike, the cause of the strike. Everything else you'll discuss. Mr. Speaker, my second question is for the Premier as well. I wonder if the Premier would not express some concern this afternoon about the increase in the number of abortions that are occurring at the Morgentaler Clinic.
Premier?
With respect to your preamble, you suggest that the reasons that are on strike are not in the bill. Are you suggesting that the reason the doctors are on strike is because of as because of money issues? Is that what you're saying? Well, I can tell you this, if it's freedoms, we're prepared to discuss them. Bill 94 only deals with the financial issues. And if you're saying that they're only striking for money, if you're saying they're only striking for money, then I'll tell them of your view on the subject. Now, the answer is, I think my colleague discussed this question yesterday with respect to the abortions going on in the so-called clinics, and I can tell you, in our view, those are not legal, and they should not be going on there.
Supplementary. Supplementary.
I have to say to the Premier that if ever he proved the case for a mediator, it was in his response a moment ago. He believes 94 is about money and doctors' incomes. The doctors have been telling you the opposite. You have made yourself academic to the process. My question.
Supplementary.
My question to the Premier is this. He refused to answer a moment ago the question, which was whether he was concerned about the increase in number of abortions occurring at the Morgentaler Clinic. I want, Mr. Speaker, to invite him to address that while he answers the supplementary question, which is whether he can confirm the rumor, and we read it in the paper through sources in the AG's office, that as a result of the increased number of abortions occurring in the Morgentaler Clinic resulting from the strike, the Attorney General will not be bringing charges against those clinics.
Premier.
I can't confirm the rumor, Mr. Speaker. As I understand it, it's the police that lay the charges, and they are the ones that investigate these matters, and you wouldn't ask us to interfere in a police investigation.
Order. 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 Final supplementary.
Is the Premier now taking the attitude that the Attorney General has nothing to do with the prosecutions of the Morgentaler Clinic? The Attorney General has been asked these questions. He's been answering the questions. He and his predecessors have all taken responsibility for the circumstances surrounding the charges and the decisions with regard to the charges and the appeal of those convictions and the acquittals. And now the Premier is trying to wash his hands of the situation. My question to the Premier is this. It's clear that the number of abortions at the Morgentaler Clinic is increasing. It's clear that the Attorney General, and it is his responsibility, has decided not to press charges just now because the charge of necessity may well be upheld, the defense of necessity may well now be upheld because of the doctor strike. Is the Premier therefore telling the people of this province that they have this choice, not have an abortion since they aren't available at many hospitals in this province because of the strike, or go to the Morgentaler Clinic? What other option do they have?
Order.
I'm not telling them either one of the two, and that's quite clear. Well, I'm not telling them either one of the two. And if the honourable member is suggesting that the Premier just tells the Attorney General when to tell the police to lay charges, let me tell you, we don't run the government like this. You may have, but I tell you, if you're suggesting to me that the Premier should instruct the Attorney General to instruct the police to lay charges, let me tell you, that's not the kind of government that I want in this province.
Order. 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 Would the leader of the opposition take a seat? Order. 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 New question, the member for York South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question for the Attorney General. I'd like to ask the Attorney General, because I don't think, to the best of my knowledge, he has not made any statement in this House with respect to what is the law in the province of Ontario with respect to the provision of medical services, the Public Hospitals Act, and the Health Disciplines Act. And I think the public is entitled to some answers. I'd like to ask the Attorney General, is it his view that a member of a hospital staff who is attached to an emergency ward can, with 8 hours' notice, inform the administrator of the hospital that he or she is leaving that particular post for an indefinite period without finding a substitute, there being one doctor taking the place of as many as 10 or 12 or 15 doctors, is it his view that that is in conformity with the Public Hospitals Act? Is it his view that that is in conformity with the Health Disciplines Act? And what does he intend to do to see that the law is enforced in the province of Ontario?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, as the honourable member knows, the Health Disciplines Act establishes offences that are tried by the disciplinary tribunal of the College of Physicians and Surgeons in this case under the general rubric of professional misconduct. Professional misconduct is defined in the regulation under a number of headings. The College of Physicians and Surgeons, which has the primary obligation to interpret those regulations, has, I believe, said that for a doctor to close a hospital or to close an emergency service or to fail to provide emergency services would be professional misconduct. That's the view of the college, as I understand it, which is the primary responsibility of making that interpretation and then applying it to the facts. I see no reason to disagree with that conclusion, but I will examine it, and if I come to a different view, I will let the honourable member know.
Supplementary?
Well, I'm amazed, Mr. Speaker, that after this period of 2 weeks, the Attorney General has not brought to the attention of the Minister of Health Section 49B of the Health Disciplines Act, which says that in addition to his powers and duties, the Minister may, and I quote, Mr. Speaker, request the Council to undertake activities that in the opinion of the Minister are necessary and advisable to carry out the intent of this Act. And I'm also astonished that the Attorney General has not drawn to attention to the Minister Section 66 of the Act, which says, and if I may quote briefly, Mr. Speaker, with your indulgence, where it appears to the College that any person does not comply with any provisions of this part or the regulations, ... the College may apply to a judge of the High Court for an order directing such person to comply with such provision. At some point, Mr. Speaker, the law has to be clear and the law has to be enforced. We're asking the Attorney General for a statement as to what the law is, what the rights of patients are, what the obligations of the college are. So far, we've had nothing but gobbledygook from every minister in this government, including the Premier of the province, with respect to what the law is. Now, what is the law, and when is it going to be enforced in the province of Ontario?
Mr. Speaker, I gave the honourable member an answer to his first question. He may not like it, but he asked for my opinion about the law. He may even disagree with it. He might even be right. But he asked for my opinion of the law, and what I said is that under the Health Disciplines Act, the college is the primary judge of whether there is professional misconduct, and they make that judgment in the course of a disciplinary hearing. They have given a preliminary view of conduct that might be adjudged to be professional misconduct. I don't disagree with the conclusion that they have come to, though it must, as the minister pointed out yesterday, be applied in concrete circumstances. If the honourable member wants to know the rights of the college, he only has to refer to the last section he read, which says what the college may do. And it's perfectly plain that that is the entitlement of the college, and if the college wishes to make that application, they can do so. And thirdly, it's not necessary to bring these sections to the attention of the Minister of Health. He's quite familiar with them, as are other members of Executive Council.
Final supplementary.
The college said last week that no teaching hospital's emergency ward could be closed. They stated that categorically in their letter. As soon as that letter was written, we learned that the emergency ward at Mount Sinai was closed indefinitely, and that information has been confirmed for me at 12:30 p.m. and the information that is provided from the Ministry of Health with respect to what services are closed. Surely the people of this province are entitled to know, when is the College of Physicians and Surgeons going to do its job? When is it going to enforce the law as it has itself interpreted that law? And if the college is not prepared to enforce the law, what does the Attorney General of this province, who's supposed to be the chief law officer of this province, when is he going to do his job and sit down with the Ministry of Health and figure out how we can get this structure working so that there is one law in this province that it applies to everybody, no matter how powerful or how well connected, and that law is going to be provided for the benefit of all the people of this province. And that's your job.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it doesn't, I concede, make for a very good speech, and I can't make it in the loud voice that my friend achieves, but the reality is that the Attorney General's job is to enforce the law. The law that this legislature has passed, and there have been no amendments that I recall suggested by the honourable member, provides that the College of Physicians and Surgeons will be the judge of whether professional misconduct has occurred in the case of a medical doctor. There is an elaborate process in the Act safeguarding the interests of the public and the doctor to see that done. Now, my friend may want us all to just barge right through that and pretend it doesn't even exist, but that's the scheme of a self-governing profession. And my obligation is to see that it is available and that the college knows its rights, and it does.
New question. New question, the member for York South.
What do you do when a self-governing profession isn't governing, Mr. Speaker? That's the question.
Is that your question?
No, it's not. The question is to the Minister.
New question, the member for York South.
I said that was the question. It's just not the question I'm going to put to the Minister of Housing, that's all. Speaker, I have a question for the Minister of Housing. It concerns our good friends Ricky and Bocce. Now, Mr. Speaker, we will, as this matter is debated, we will all come to learn and love Ricky and Bocce. But I would like to ask the minister if he can explain to me, Ricky, as I understand it, and we're all, believe me, Mr. Speaker, we're all laymen when it comes to learning who Ricky and Bocce really are. But Ricky is the amount that the landlord can charge without having to go to rent review under the proposals that are contained in Bill 51. Now, Ricky equals 2/3 of Bocce plus 2%. Okay, everybody got that? 2/3 Bocce plus 2. Now, what I'd like to ask, I think everyone should understand this because it's very important.
Question, please.
Now, the question that I have for the minister is, no, I got a lot more in the journal that wasn't on the air either, and it would curl your hair.
Question.
What they showed was Mary Poppins compared to what happened on the journal last night, Mr. Speaker, let me tell you. What I would like to ask the minister is this, with respect to the new proposals that are being proposed by the government of Ontario. The old figure was 4%. Not Ricky, not Bocce, was 4%. Can the minister tell us where does the plus 2 come from, and can he confirm today that in effect what the figure that is now going to be the residential guideline is in fact well over 5%,
Minister,
and not 4% as you promised in the last
order. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me see if I can go through this Ricky and Bocce for you a bit. As you know that the rent review guidelines in the past, Mr. Speaker, were tied into the inflation and with Consumers Price Index. And as you know, the Consumers Price Index has within it various things that are not relevant to rental housing or to the maintenance of housing, the operating costs of the rental housing. And what the building, the Bocce, that's the right pronunciation my staff told me to say, that is the building operating costs. Factors or elements that are relevant to the operating of buildings. Now, bear with me a bit. And with that building operating cost, they have identified 22 factors, Mr. Speaker. 22 factors that are consistent to the cost of operating buildings. And these are weighted, Mr. Speaker. Now, as you know, that the formula that was agreed upon by both landlords and tenants, Mr. Speaker, he asked for an explanation, and this will take some time, Mr. Speaker. Oh, it will. Oh, it will. Order. If the minister can wind up in another 20 seconds, fine. If not, we'll have to.
Order. Supplementary.
Speaker, I want to talk about some of Bocce's cousins. I'm sorry. Bocce, I feel more comfortable with Bocce somehow. I don't know. Post 1975 apartment buildings can increase rents 5% above the guidelines. Therefore, rents could increase 10.2%. I wonder if the minister can confirm that. That a new or recent purchase of an apartment building that has accompanying high mortgage rates resulting in a financial loss in that year could mean an increase of 10.2%. That newly constructed apartment buildings are guaranteed a rate of return which could mean an increase as much as 15.6%. And that so-called older buildings with the chronically depressed scenario could have increases as high as 7.2%. I wonder if the minister can confirm those figures, because when I go to talk to my tenants, they don't understand Ricky and Bocce, but they understand that they're getting a 2% or a 3% increase in salary, and they're having to pay a 10 or a 15 or a 7% increase in rent, and they wonder where the heck the justice went in the rent control system that they were supposed to have voted for in 1985.
Mr. Speaker, the member have asked some very important questions. I think the important question, Mr. Speaker, he asked about where is that 4%. I'd like you to tell the honourable member, to tell your constituents that we will honour that 4%, that it will be, as in the past, as you know, the post-1975 buildings were not included. And now that we are including them on the Bill 51, as soon as we have it passed, as we settle down to have both members of both opposition parties having the Bill 51 passed, it will be retroactive to the 1st of August 1985. And that in itself, you can tell your tenants that we will honor that, because we had believed in that. Now, it is nice, Mr. Speaker, to think that we can only address that 4% increase. But what Bill 51 has done is look forward in the future, where what we will be doing in the year 1987, 1988, and 1989. And the honourable member spoke about a guideline that has been agreed upon by the tenants and landlord, so that people will know if there are increases will come on, or if it should be deducted or reduced, where there should be no increase, decreases in their rent. And that guideline has taken care of that. And it's a forward-looking legislation, a forward-looking guideline.
Final supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, it's onward and upward to 15.6%. I mean, that's what it looks like to me. If this is forward-looking, it's not the kind of future which the tenants really, I think, voted for in 85. But a basic question, a basic matter of principle that I'd like to ask the minister, can he explain why, even when you look at how Ricky is going to be calculated, the basic amount, the basic level, can he explain where the +2 comes from? Can he confirm that that's not just gravy going to the landlord? And can he tell us why the landlord's equity and the landlord's potential capital gain figure nowhere in the rate of return? So that what tenants are being asked to do is pay for an annual level of profitability for landlords, and over and above, in addition to that, what landlords are getting is their capital gain. It's a one-way deal for tenants, Mr.
Minister.
The member asked some very, very important question again, which will take some time. There in the past, in the past, Mr. Speaker, when guidelines were being applied by the previous government, it had no relevance at all with inflation. If the inflation was 8%, or what the case would be, sometimes 12%, sometimes the guidelines were 8%. And what this has done in a time of high inflation, you will notice, you haven't spoken, the honourable member haven't mentioned about the averaging of the increase. That there is a cutoff at 6%, Mr. Speaker, wherein that when inflation is above 6%, the guideline itself accommodate an increase that is less than 6%. When it's below 6, it will be a little bit higher. So in the time of high inflation, Mr. Speaker, tenants are being protected.
New question, the member for Sarnia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Premier, and by way of a brief introduction to refresh the Premier's memory from last week, the Premier's conflict of interest guidelines state that any minister who has shares in a public corporation must either divest himself of those shares or place them in a blind trust. I believe I'm quoting accurately. The guidelines also state that any such holdings must be publicly disclosed 1 month after taking office. Could the Premier inform this House what action he would take if he discovered that one of his ministers was directly, in fact, blatantly in violation of those guidelines?
Premier? Well, Mr. Speaker, I believe that every minister should conform with those guidelines. The matters have been checked. If you've got some suggestion that someone hasn't, then I'm most anxious to look at that immediately.
Supplementary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, in January of this year, in response to a similar question, the Premier stated, and I quote, "Every little tiny detail has been tied up and everything is as it should be," and this is with respect to your cabinet colleagues, "in conformity with the guidelines," end of quote. Now, in view of that statement and his own conflict of interest guidelines, how could the Premier possibly allow his Minister of Northern Development and Mines to own, up to March of this year, March of 1986, over 36,000 shares of Golden Tiger, a mining company operating in Ontario, without, sir, publicly disclosing his holdings, as is required to the Clerk of the House and to this Assembly, and, in fact, without putting those holdings in a blind trust? What action, might I suggest, is the Premier prepared to take?
Premier.
Speaker, let me say I'm not aware of the charge the honourable member makes today, and I will investigate that immediately.
New question, the member for Riverdale.
Speaker, I'd like to go back to Minister of Housing. And I'd like to go back to the bocce game, because my leader had such a good time with it. The minister doesn't understand it. You don't understand it. Nobody understands it. But people of Italian descent understand it, Mr. Speaker, because it's a game. Bocce is a game, and bocce is a big ball.
And the question
And the pacino is a little ball. And the little ball is the tenant, and bocce, of course, is the big ball, and that's the landlord. Will the minister tell the House how many times he's going to ask his colleague, the Minister of Natural Resources, to borrow an airplane to fly Mr. Bocce into communities to tell tenants they've got to get hit by the big bocce?
Minister.
I don't want to be frivolous, Mr. Speaker,
Minister?
but we don't borrow planes from the natural resources to do those things anyhow. But what we're doing, Mr. Speaker, because too often that we have bills in the House,
Order.
I think the member really wants the answer to the question. That what we want to do, Mr. Speaker, because too often when we have bills in the House, it's not understood by the people who are affected by it. And I have charged my ministry and my staff to get out to the tenants and landlords so that we can understand this. As when we have a bill, then we have a legislation that is understood by the people. We stand by the fact that it's a very, very good guideline. It's a very, very good bill, and we feel that we must sell it to the people. I would like, Mr. Speaker, that we get away from the rhetoric, because this is a very important point we're moving on. We have gotten together, the ministry, that people working together to resolve this. And I want to remind the honourable members that this was done by tenants and landlords group. Sure, Mr. Speaker, there are people that we're saying we're not represented on this advisory group. I can say the same thing for all of us here. I don't think I come here to represent 220,000 people. I come here to represent 220,000 people in Scarborough North. But, Mr. Speaker, they are not all who voted for me. I would hope that we have an input of all people into this as we go along.
Supplementary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we'll have input. It depends how many people can fit into the airplane. I don't think the minister should stand in the House and deny that an M&R plane did not fly Bill Grenier into Essex South. But I would like him to withdraw all this bocce nonsense and all this Ricky nonsense and stand in his place today and tell the House that it's going to be 4%.
Order. Point of order. Point of order.
Essex South.
Point of privilege?
Yes, sir.
You get an airplane track in your head.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member for Riverdale has stated that a government plane has taken certain people to the constituency of Essex South. I want to inform the House, Mr. Speaker, that the allegation, the way it was made, seems to imply that something improper was done. I want to... Mr. Speaker,
Order.
This is very important. Well, important. Just as you allow them to give you a backdrop before they put your questions, it's important that I allow that I be allowed to continue. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to try to shut...
Order. First of all, the member got up on a point of privilege. It is not a point of privilege. Do you have a point of order? And what's your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, I'm trying to respond to an allegation of an impropriety, referring to the constituency of Essex South.
Order. With order. Would you tell me what the allegation is, very, very briefly?
No, sir. The honourable member for the riding of Riverdale seems to imply that something was wrong when someone was flown by government aircraft to the constituency of Essex South. What I want to inform yourself, Mr. Speaker, so that the record can show is that...
Order. Would the honourable member take a seat? He's placing his own point of view. Order. Supplementary. Order. Supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My supplementary to the Minister of Housing is this. We have waited a long time for rent review legislation in this province that protects tenants. Will you now stand in your place and withdraw Ricky and Bocce and bring in a 4% that will honor your province and will not break it on New Year's Day in 1987?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let me just quickly comment on what the member stated. If there is impropriety in the airplane hiring, I'll look into that and get back to you, Mr. Speaker. I think it should not go on like that.
Tenants Association?
Yes.
Order.
Mr. Speaker.
Order. Surely, with respect to the other members, would the member for Essex South... Order. Would the member for Essex South refrain from making any... Order. Would the member for York South and the member for Essex South refrain from interjecting? Order. New question. The member for Sarnia.
My question is to the Premier, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to advise the Premier that on January the 30th of '86, the Minister of Northern Development and Mines made a statement to this House indicating that he had instructed his solicitors to execute his resignations from the Board of Directors of lumber companies, including United Sawmill Limited, companies that were involved in FMA negotiations. On the day following that, the same minister filed disclosures to the clerk of the House stating that he had no share interests in public corporations. Mr. Speaker, I have here a document which is in fact the actual document filed with the clerk's office relative to a cabinet minister's holdings. I'd like to advise the Premier, and I'd be more than happy to share this with him, that this document shows no indication whatever of Golden Tiger holdings, as required by your guidelines, as required by the former government's guidelines, and as expected, I would think, by each and every member of this House with respect to a cabinet minister's disclosures.
Here, here. Here, here.
My question is, are you aware, sir, of the fact that your Minister of Northern Development and Mines in fact filed a document which did not contain all of the information as required by law?
Premier.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member, I'm completely unaware of the situation you raised in this House, and obviously it's a very serious allegation you make, and I can assure you that it will be dealt with extremely promptly, and I will report back to you the course of action I've decided to take in dealing with this matter. But I would like to know, at least in a preliminary way, the facts.
Supplementary.
Well, let me ask the Premier if he thinks...
Point of privilege.
Point of privilege is my rights as a member have been infringed upon. In fact, we stood up as a member from the government to ask a question, and the Speaker went to the opposition.
Order. 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 I realized after I recognized the other member that the member was trying to get the floor at that quite noisy period. I did recognize the member for Sarnia. So supplementary, and I shall continue.
Does the Premier in fact think it is appropriate for a minister, particularly in the sensitive portfolio of Northern Development and Mines, to be involved with a company by the name of Golden Tiger, which is in fact doing business in Ontario and is very clearly identified as being a company which is involved in the mining industry? Does the Premier not see any potential conflict in that kind of relationship?
Premier?
The answer is, of course I do. And I've never heard of this situation, and the facts you put to me in this House today that I've never heard of are extremely disturbing to me. And I've told the honourable member I'm going to look into that. I want to obviously look at the facts and face value. This case you put to me is obviously extremely disturbing.
New question, the member for Scarborough West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Minister of Community and Social Services in regards to the Children's Aid Society strike here in Toronto. The Minister must be aware that the base subsidy to the CAS in Toronto over the last 5 years by Mr. Frank Dre's policy has only increased 14% in comparison with the Catholic Children's Aid's increase of 34% during that period. Mr. Minister, do you agree with your colleague to your left, the now Minister of Labour, who, as the critic for Community and Social Services, waxed eloquent for many pages, saying things like, "It seems to me that the policy of the government of this province is fundamentally short-sighted. By the budgetary cutbacks in the social service field and to social agencies, it has unfortunately forced them to suspend, ironically, the very preventative programs the Minister spoke about." You are continuing Frank Dre's policy of squeezing the CAS. Why are you doing it?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member is incorrect in his last statement. We are not continuing them. Mr. Speaker, I have to go back very briefly to 1983. At that point in time, it was evident to this ministry that the percentage, the ratio of children in care that were the responsibility of the Metro Children's Aid Society was in fact decreasing, while the ratio of the children in care for the Catholic Society and the Jewish Society was increasing. A decision was made at that time that the base budget of the Metro Society would be reduced and the same amount of money would be applied to the base budgets of the other two societies simply to take account of the changing demographics. That was the reality. Mr. Speaker, the decision was made at that time over a 4-year period to reduce the budget by $2.8 million. Up until 1985, it was in fact reduced by 1.6. As soon as we took over the government, the 600,000 that would have come off in 1985 was not taken off. The 600,000 that would have come off in 1986 was not taken off. So that has not been changed. I would also point out to the honourable member that even with those changes, at the present time, the Metro Society is getting 60% of the total children's aid budget in Metro. It has 53% of the caseload.
Supplementary.
The minister is using the same arguments Frank Dre used when he called the CES, Metro CES a Cadillac program. Rather than maintaining it and bringing up the others, you're decreasing its capacity. And is it not a fact, Mr. Minister, that over the last 5 years, it's the CES workers who have borne the brunt with only a 13% increase over those 5 years? And is that fair? And are you going to use the supposed autonomy of that CES board to keep yourself out of this, even though your ministry will go in and take over Kenora and will use budget cuts to basically force the preventative programs to be forestalled around the province?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think it has to be clearly stated that the autonomy of children's aid societies, all 51 of them across this province, is not supposed, it is real. Those societies are run by an independent board of directors. The Kenora Society today is also run by an independent board of directors. Mr. Speaker, the total budget available to this society is certainly appropriate compared to the entire province. As a matter of fact, at the present time, the percentage of the child population, the percentage of the child population in Metro is 21%. The percentage of the budget in Metro is 32%. It is most appropriate.
New question, the member for York East. Order. Order. The member for York East.
Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Minister of the Environment. Mr. Speaker, in the weekend press, it was reported that the United States Energy Secretary, John Harrington, he was quoted as saying that about acid rain, that the known problem is small, and also that there is no indication of a near-term urgency. My question to the Minister of the Environment is, do you agree with those statements?
Good question. I think it's a good question.
Minister.
First of all, I think it's I can't hear for the opposition interjecting.
Order. Order. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think it's a very appropriate question, and members of this House, I'm sure, of all parties, would want to express concern about that particular statement, because we were under the impression that after the last summit, and because of some activity that has been taking place in the U.S. House of Representatives and to a lesser degree in the U.S. Senate, that the level of activity related to dealing with the problem of acid rain in the U.S. was going to be somewhat higher than it had been expected previous to that. To hear a person in this position, you say it's the Secretary of Energy of the United States, making a statement that it is in hand and that it is not the problem that many anticipate, I think is something we certainly in Ontario, I think all members of all parties would certainly not agree with that, and I'm convinced our federal government, which was involved in the negotiations with the U.S., would certainly not agree with that statement.
Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, my supplementary to the Minister is, what can we do at the provincial level to help persuade our American neighbors to take their heads out of the sand?
Minister.
Well, there has been, I think that, first of all, the Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Speaker, says it's a very good question, and I agree with the Leader of the Opposition on this particular case. I think that what we can do as Canadians is continue to remind our American friends of the importance of this problem. For instance, we can encourage those who visit Canada from the United States, particularly those who are cottagers in the Muskoka area, who experience the detrimental effects of acid rain, that we can encourage those people to take the message back to the United States and continue the dialogue between those who are sympathetic to the cause of abating acid rain in the U.S. By continued dialogue at conferences. We had a major conference at Muskoka, members may remember, where people from all around the world pointed to the fact that it is indeed a problem. And I know that our federal counterpart, Stan Darling, who is the chairman of the committee at the federal level, has on many occasions attended functions where he has brought this to the attention of the U.S.
New question? The member for Lincoln.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to return to a more serious issue that perhaps even the member for York East might agree is somewhat more urgent. My question is the Premier. The number of therapeutic abortion committees that are inoperable is now growing. New cases are not being considered. Women are not having access to this service. Can you tell me how Ontario women are able to legally access this important health care service?
Mr. Premier, there's no question problems have been created as a result of the action that some of the medical profession have taken in the last little while. I don't disagree with that. But there are other services, as you know, that are available, and it's I don't stand before you and pretend it's not a problem for some people, but I believe it is being dealt with in other facilities.
Supplementary.
I want to remind the Premier that on April the 2nd, 1985, in an interview, he said this: "We believe that all women must have equal access to legal therapeutic abortions. For that reason, we would remove, wherever possible, barriers which restrict access." Your answer breaks that commitment. Your answer insults the women of this province. You and the Minister of Health have told this House that essential health care services are going to be provided, in spite of the strike, in spite of the activities of the doctors in the province. Why are you running and hiding from this issue?
Premier? No, we're not running and hiding at all. I think we've been very straight and forthcoming on the situation, and it's not just a problem in respect to abortion service, a problem in other areas as well. It's a very difficult situation at the moment that's unique, as you know. This is not the normal course of events that have been happening in the last 10 days. And I think my honorable friend has to agree that this government has made a significant number of moves to bring equal access to all health care facilities, including our Northern Trevor and another. Well, we have. Let's be very fair about this situation. And if you're trying to take this particular job action problem and relate that to the grand problem, I don't think that you're quite accurate in so doing.
New question, the member for Sudbury East.
I have a question of the Minister of Labour. On May 13th, 86, at 8:15, Tim Peacock, an employee of Brantford, was seriously burned. He was instructed by his foreman, Tim Peacock, employee of the City of Brantford. 3 workers were ordered by their foreman to burn out 500-gallon cola drums with gasoline instead of diesel fuel. When it was ignited, the drum blew up and the man went some 15 to 20 feet in the air, suffering third-degree burns to his hands, burns to his face, his ears, and his arms. This accident was not reported to the health and safety rep immediately, but was advised about it some 8 hours later. Why did your staff take the word of management that this explosion only caused minor injuries and did not investigate, even though the accident was being reported some 24 hours later?
Minister?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I can just tell the honourable member that I'm aware of the general nature of that incident and the issue as to whether their injuries were minor or otherwise, and whether we followed the proper procedures because the injuries were not minor in nature. Those matters are being looked into.
Supplementary.
Well, supplementary. The City of Brantford officials violated the Health and Safety Act by not reporting this serious incident immediately, as they're supposed to do. Can you tell me why this accident was not investigated until May 26, some 13 days later, and only after phone calls from Joe Devitt from QB and the local rep? Is this how the new inspection system works, or is this the swamp at its best?
Here, here.
Minister?
Well, Mr. Speaker, we will. I'll get back to the honourable member as quickly as I can on that, on the specifics of his question. But I can only say, Mr. Speaker, that and the honourable member should know this, that the Health and Safety Division, like any other agency of government, any other arm of government, is not perfect and is always open, and is always open for second guessing. But I suggest to the honourable member, Mr. Speaker, in spite of what the honourable member says, that the effectiveness of the division is better than it's ever been. That the effectiveness of the division in terms of assuring that orders are complied with appropriately and promptly is better than it's ever been, and that the effectiveness, Mr. Speaker, the effectiveness of the division in ensuring that where there are substantive violations of the Act and where orders are not complied with, Mr. Speaker, the effectiveness in the division ensuring through prosecution that the deterrent effect of prosecution is better than it's ever been.
New question. The member for Brantford.
Mr. Speaker, I have a question for the Minister of Industry, Trade and Technology. I understand that the government is today tabling information regarding the Exploricom grant. I'm sure the Minister has had a chance to familiarize himself with it. My question is, Minister, can you tell the House, in fact, whether this grant is being made on a matching fund basis, as is suggested in the throne speech, or has some special financial arrangement has been made that would see funds flowing regardless of private sector support?
Minister?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'd be very pleased to answer the question. First of all, the documents will be tabled later today, and you will have them before the day is finished. I'd also like to tell you that one of the key conditions as part of that Exploricom grant, and it reads, a matching provincial funding, and it reads, Exploricom has no commitment to provincial participation unless this is earned through matching private sector contributions in cash or display credits.
Supplementary?
Thank you. I appreciate that answer, Minister. Is the Minister aware that none of the promotional materials that have been put out to private industry by Mr. Schwartz indicate that in any way? That their financial statement shows quite clearly that they expected $8.75 million to be flowed during the months of April, May, and June. And is the Minister further aware that at this point, only 6 computer companies have expressed interest in participating in Exploricom, which would represent a very, very small proportion of the proposed provincial funding?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, as I stated, the key condition was what I just stated. What I should say is that you may have only a list of 6, but I have a very complete list here, and it goes from such companies as Honeywell Limited, Xerox Canada Incorporated, Hewlett-Packard Canada Incorporated, DataPoint, Pitney Bowes, Omnibus Computer, General Datacom, goes on and on, listing a whole list of companies that feel that this project is important enough that they are willing to take part in it.
New question. The member for York South.
Speaker, I have a question for the Minister of Labour. I'd like to ask the Minister, he will no doubt be aware from discussions with his staff and from having perused the newspaper over the last number of weeks and months of the very unusual case at Consumers Distributing, its relationship with Teamsters Local 419, and in particular the Minister should be aware by this time of the case of one John Persaud, who, as the Minister will know, was fired by Consumers Distributing and has been involved ever since that time with an extremely lengthy, complicated, and very difficult series of proceedings in an attempt to get his job back. Mr. Speaker, the Minister will know that Consumers Distributing has just taken a most recent decision by the Ontario Human Rights Commission not to ratify an agreement which Mr. Persaud allegedly made. He argues he made it under duress.
Question, please.
In any event, this case has gone to court. I'd like to ask the Minister, can he tell the House what steps he intends to take to ensure that justice is done in a case where there is substantial evidence of collusion between the Teamsters and Consumers Distributing.
Minister.
Where there have been extensive criminal charges,
Order.
and where Mr. Prasad is still without
Order.
his job and still without
Minister.
industrial justice in the province of Ontario.
Mr. Speaker, I am aware of the Prasad matter, as I'm sure the honourable member knows. Mr. Speaker, a great deal of time. I've had a good number of discussions with my staff on this matter, and I am aware, Mr. Speaker, of the allegations and indeed the information that was raised in yesterday's press reports. I can only say, however, to my honourable friend, and I'm sure, being a lawyer, he will understand this, that because of where the matter is right now, I don't think it would be appropriate to get into details of the case.
Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, the minister's answer hardly comes as a surprise to me because it's a cop-out and it's the easy way out for the minister in a case that is enormously complex. But consider the case of Mr. Prasad, an individual without means, without income, who feels very strongly that he has been discriminated against on racial grounds. There is substantial evidence of criminal activity, both by the management of the company and by the leadership of the trade union at the time that Mr. Prasad was fired. Just what are his legal remedies? What are the remedies of somebody who is clearly in a circumstance where he stands virtually alone and where he has no visible means of support and no job? Won't the minister help to cut the Gordian knot in this case, Mr. Speaker?
Mr. Speaker, I'm sure the honourable member knows that Mr. Prasad is currently pursuing certain remedies, and beyond that, I don't think it would be appropriate to comment.
Time for all questions has expired.